Ireland's massive win against Qatar, Newcastle's first game under new ownership. And do you remember his name? Team 33 is up next. But before that, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below and you'll get all the Team 33s and off the ball materials over the next couple of weeks. Now, time for Team 33.
Team 33. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Well, the day has finally come. Ireland have won a game of football once again. I didn't know what age I would be, if I would be older, if I would be wiser, if I would be grayer when this finally happened. But Ireland have finally won a game of football once again, and it came against the mighty Azerbaijan against Qatar on Tuesday night. Welcome along to Team 33. And here, Arthur O'D is here as well. Arthur, hello.
How are you, Enda?
I'm all good, and Colin Boog is with us as well. Colin, how are you getting on?
Hi, Enda. Hi, Arthur.
So, I mean, let's start with Ireland 4, Qatar 0, the greatest game of Irish football of all time. I think you'll all agree with me. Callum Robinson getting the first Irish hat-trick for the men's team since 2014. No prizes for guessing who that was. Does anyone want to have a guess?
2014?
Robbie Keanes.
Yeah.
Yes. Arthur, I mean, you don't really have to think about it too hard. You thought about it a lot harder than I actually expected to.
I saw something about David Connolly.
No. It was Robbie Keane. He got it against, I want to say San Marino, but I know it's not San Marino. That was the previous hat-trick. He scored the last 3 Irish hat-tricks, and they came against the 3 worst teams that Ireland have played. So it was San Marino. There was Gibraltar was actually the last one. And then there was one other team that I can't seem to remember off the top of my head. Probably should have written that down if I was going to start the show with it. But hey ho, let's talk about this Irish game. It's been analyzed to death, so I don't really want to talk about, the 3 goals or the football that Ireland have been playing, because, I mean, if you want to get that, there's about 6 different podcasts from Irish legends and from off the ball contributors as well on the OTB podcast network on our YouTube channel. You can find all them there. I want to talk about the cultural aspect of this game. Chiedozie Ogbeni became the first Nigerian born player to start for Ireland. He obviously played against Azerbaijan on Saturday as well, scored a goal as well, but this was his first start in front of a 25,000 crowd at the Aviva Stadium. First Nigerian born player, the first African player, as it's been reported on in the news. And this is really where we're seeing now the impact of the immigration into Ireland, especially from Nigeria, on the national team. So if you go through the senior squad, Chiedozie Ogbeni, he's Nigerian born, grew up in Cork. Gavin Bazunu, son of a Nigerian father. Andre Omabamidele is son of a Nigerian. And Adam Ida as well is a son of a Nigerian father as well. Going to the underage camp, Boston Lawwell, who's currently playing for Celtic, Jonathan Afolabi, and Joshua Coyote as well. So we're talking about a large cultural impact that Nigeria is having on the Irish national team. And it's quite exciting to see this coming through. So, Arthur, this is what we all probably should have expected 10, 15 years ago, but I don't think that we would have seen the culmination of it really in our own minds and the large impact that this would have at such a big scale at the one time, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose it's very hard to know. It's very hard to measure. I don't know generally how, in what way those things kind of end up developing. I suppose it takes time, and I suppose it's kind of not unusual in one regard when you're watching it, because we've seen it, that sort of kind of how immigration can impact these things, specifically, I suppose, with England and the England national team, obviously, and everything. Kind of an awful lot of countries are an awful lot further ahead than us with this sort of. So it's kind of, I suppose, it's, while it kind of is a new phenomenon here to a certain degree, and it's just, I suppose you can say it's brilliant to see, but it's just natural to see, really. But yeah, it's kind of, I suppose it's just kind of us catching up, really, more than anything.
Colin, I mean, this can only really be a good thing. The more that we have different cultures coming into Ireland, different ideas, different, the impact that these players can have on the nation as a whole, as well as the football team, it really can't be underestimated.
Oh yeah, the more multicultural a country is, the better. And as you say, yeah, we're seeing in the football team. It's very exciting as well for us Cork people. Ogbeni and Ida from down the road. Ida went to the same school as me, playing for the same team as me. Ogbeni grew up in the town next to me. So very exciting. A lot of great players from that area of Ireland. So that's great. And yeah, we're the better team for it. And you'd like to think we're a better country for it too. And you would think in the next generation it will be even more diverse. And, at a time when there's an awful lot to be negative about Ireland, that's something to be very positive about. But I mean, you could also argue, as Arthur said, that we're only catching up really. But I think the more that becomes the norm, the better. And we would definitely have a better national team as a result.
So would you have known Animators and Ogbeni growing up, or were they a bit too young for you?
Think about the maths now. I'm only.
I'm trying to gauge what age you are. You're early 30s.
No, I don't know them personally at all, and let's say people that I knock about with also wouldn't know them personally. But all we need to know is where they're from, and it's great stock, and it's very exciting. But it is great when anyone from down the road really makes it like that. It's very exciting. And you have an element of pride with it, even though you've absolutely nothing personally to do with it. It's just sheer coincidence that's where you're from. But it's also something to look back on and be like, wow, I can't believe they're from down the road. I mean, like, is it the same for you with Seamus Coleman? I don't know how close you are to Kitty Beggs, but I imagine
I'm the opposite side of the county.
Right. So he means nothing to you, so you're saying.
Oh no, he means the world to me. He's the best Irish player, and he's the Irish captain from Donegal. He's just going to come home and retire. And
yeah, I hear he comes back all the time in the summer. Arthur, who are you most proud of sport-wise from Sligo?
God, generally,
yeah.
Well, this is kind of all bringing back up what happened on Mount Rushmore on OTB AM. Not that long ago. It's just too much pressure. Like, it depends what you get into. Like, I know if you're talking about football-wise specifically, like, there's probably, I imagine there's as much pride in Seamus Coleman given his Sligo Rovers links as there would be in Donegal. Like, that's still, I know amongst like fervent Sligo Rovers fans, he's everything, he really is. And just, I suppose, it's everything. Like, you don't need to come on and wax lyrical about Seamus Coleman. Like, he's just a fantastic individual. But just that kind of thing, I suppose. What is it? Born in Donegal, made in Sligo.
Wow.
It's the same.
I was all for you waxing lyrical about Seamus Coleman until you said that. So
it's the same with Cork people for Kevin Doyle, Shane Long, and Shawnee Maguire. They made it a Cork City, so they went through, and people get very excited about it as a result. But no, I don't know the two lads personally, but I never even heard about them. You would hear about really outstanding players in Cork coming through, but I honestly hadn't heard much about the two lads before they became well known.
Well, Ogbeni himself, he was more prominent within GAA circles as well. I mean, he was pegged to be an absolute sensational star for Cork growing up. And I read an interview with one of his former coaches, and he was making an argument that Chiedozie Ogbeni could have been much better than Brian Fenton. I'm not sure why they were comparing the two, but if he was that level, then he must have been pretty good. And look, this is a big thing, and it's quite exciting at this point in time because Chiedozie Ogbeni, he's the first Nigerian-born player to play for Ireland, and all these players. This is the first generation of what we're really seeing. Eventually, it will become commonplace, like you were saying, Arthur. And I guess that's the level that we want to get to at this point, where the people who come to this country bet into the country, they bet into the sports, everything. They get involved, they're welcomed, and there is a pathway for these people to actually, Chiedozie Ogbeni, he's the first to do it. That should really inspire younger players who are coming in, and maybe at this point in time they might not feel the Irish identity, but if they see, okay, Ogbeni's Nigerian, Ida's from Nigerian heritage, that it's possible for them to do the same, and they could potentially play for Ireland as well. And I think that's the main point I'm trying to get from all this.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a great way to, I suppose, for anyone to ingratiate, like, wherever your background is from, within a kind of community and society. It'll be interesting to see how it develops. And I mean, I suppose you can't ever move too far from these discussions as well without, I suppose, in recent years, most kind of vociferously, the situation surrounding Cyrus Christie. And then You think about all the abuse he received. And I don't know, I imagine, well, it's not to be negative about it. I don't know that I'm not, it's kind of great, I suppose, after a night like that. And then you do kind of worry about, and I'd worry about it. I don't know, maybe it's unfounded thing, but I do kind of worry about then what happens in terms of if things go a bit sour on the field, and how quickly do these same people who are kind of ingratiating and everything else in good faith become the target of kind of that same abuse, which is, I mean, those people are still there. It's probably I just find it hard to ever look too far away from, because it always seems like it'll be what's brought up if I suppose if things go poorly. But it's probably not to be thinking about this stage. Maybe thinking good faith about it, but it always kind of just sticks with me, because it just of what did happen to Cyrus Christie particularly.
Yeah, well, it's similar enough to what happened after the Euros final when the players missed the penalty. Yeah. Immediately, you knew it was coming. You knew that's the side of things that people would draw on, and you just hope that with time we'll eventually get past that, and it wouldn't have much of an impact for Ireland. Before we move on to the Newcastle takeover, just to finish off on this, it should be said that Ogbeni, I was massively impressed by his two performances for Ireland against Azerbaijan, and especially against Qatar on Tuesday night. I know he didn't score, but I mean, he brought something different to that Irish side that we've been missing. And Callum Robinson will clearly get a lot of credit because of the hat-trick, and he had two really good games for Ireland over the last week. But Ogbeni really brings a dynamism to that side that has been really lacking. And for a player of his age, playing at his level, he was playing probably above where it should have been, Coleman. I don't know. I think he's definitely earned his right to be in an Irish jersey in the next campaign.
Yeah, I don't think we are in any position to be looking down on, say, a League One player or anything like that, because, as you say, Andy, you saw what he can bring to the final third, basically, the pitch that we have been lacking. But if you actually look at the Ireland squad and the options that we have, it is quite exciting. There's a lot of really good players coming through, and it wasn't that long ago where we were in a crisis in terms of, football in the country and what is coming through, and is there any sort of industry, which there kind of still isn't. And in many ways, we're kind of overachieving as a country, because we probably don't put enough into soccer in the country, really, to develop it to an absolute elite level. So it is really exciting when it kind of goes back to the original conversation end of this, is that it's more multicultural, we have more options. And when you see someone like Ogbeni, terrorizing defense is a bit much, but he was very, very busy up front. And that's kind of the way Ireland make the most of any talent that they have, is being really busy and not letting the opposition rest. And I think we're kind of full of those players now, which is great. Which leads me on to my thought about Jeff Hendrick and how frustrated I get with him, because he played really well the other night. But he played well because Ireland was doing well. And I really want him to play with that bravery when it's a tight game and it's 0-0 in a qualification match, because he still started that game by passing backwards a lot and just wanting to retain possession. And I'm using Hendrick specifically because I want to see Ogbeni and everybody else, when it's 0-0 in a really tight game, being as positive as we were when it was 3-4, and looking ahead and looking forward, because we can obviously do it. We just need to have more faith in ourselves as a country. And there is just still so much talk about, is Kenny the right guy for the job, and not enough focus on the actual team. But if you look at the team and you take away all subjectivity and emotion about, I don't know if Kenny's right for the job, it's actually a very exciting young squad that generally could go to last 16, last 8 territory of major tournaments. And Ogbeni is one example of the reason that we can be excited, because he really wants to play for the country. He offers a lot, and he's one of many. We're Ireland in a very good place at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to have to prevent myself from going into end of rant mode here, but Irish football, people will disagree with that. I definitely think people will say that Irish football is not overachieving. I would agree with you. I think Ireland is almost overachieving to spite itself, despite the lack of funding, despite the absolute, tearing apart of structures over the last 10, 15 years with the lack of funding, with the management of the association. And people have been, the usual response would be that it was Qatar. And you do have to take that as context. It is Qatar. Qatar ranked higher than us. Why are Qatar ranked higher than us? Because they've been pummeling money into their football team over the last 10 years to try and get ready for this World Cup. Azerbaijan, likewise, have been funding massive amount of money into their development of football. Luxembourg, who beat us, have had a massive long-term plan in place for the last 20 years. Their manager, as I said before on the show, it has been in charge for 10 years developing that plan. They ripped up the entire system. So like, people can look down on those teams all they want. They've got their house in order. We haven't. And yet somehow we're, asked to be competitive with these sides. So I do think Ireland are overachieving at the minute. As a nation, compared to where we were 20 years ago, we're definitely underachieving. But I mean, who are we if we haven't changed in 20 years? Things changed, the world moved on, and Ireland haven't moved on from what they were doing 20 years ago. So I mean, like, what do you want this to do?
What do people want from Ireland as a national football team? Do you know?
Yeah,
like, I don't know Ireland what you feel in this, but there's kind of an element of that. You can't really make everyone happy here with this. Do you know what I mean? We're really split down.
I vaguely recall, I think you were on OTB AM one morning. This must have been, I don't even know if Kenny was in yet. It might still have been McCarthy. And you were talking about, I suppose, what Irish people want is, like, I think it was a party, something like that. So that's they want to go to tournaments. That's what we want ultimately. Like, I'm not so far gone on the system and the system being key and everything else. I like, there's a degree of that, but like, if you look back at your best nights following and supporting Ireland, like, off the top of my head, there's obviously Italy in 2016, Germany particularly. I mean, I wouldn't say we played Germany off the park. I know that's not what the situation is. I know it's not a case where we're going to be going toe to toe with world beaters and playing them off the park, and that's the situation. But I think a lot can be said just for emotion. Emotion's kind of what you get into it forward. Like, I don't really care. I do care. Like, you care a degree. You care, I suppose, where it's very evident. Like, on Tuesday night, right? That was great. It was great to see us play so well against a team that you would suggest we should be beating, really. I know the Qatar put money in, but for all intents and purposes, we should be beating Qatar. And to see us do that job so effectively was brilliant. But I still don't think that's necessarily where the joy comes in being an Ireland fan necessarily. I don't think, like, that's where that's not what you're getting excited about. A very scrappy 1-1 draw against Portugal in any way, whoever the manager is, whatever the style, that's kind of, I suppose that's where memories are made a little bit.
See, what's interesting about that is, and I've no doubt that a large chunk of Irish fans fall into that, is that if you bring up Irish football and the way that Ireland play, and the whole argument around Stephen Kenny, people point to the past of, results against Germany, the draw against Denmark, the Euros, these results, but they rarely bring up the Georgia game where Georgia had more possession, more shots, and a better passing accuracy than us in the Aviva Stadium. And Georgia are a side that, you should be considered, we should be beating them, especially at home. I know Georgia's a tough place to go. They rarely bring up these results. The Gibraltar win, that was a 1-0 win away to Gibraltar, a side that, has won 3 games in the last 10 years. Like, they rarely bring up the bad nights. And that's why I do think there's something in the emotion thing, because these big nights against Germany let you forget about that. But I wonder if enough results against sides that we are off our level, like playing good football against them, getting results against them, I wonder how many of those do you need to eliminate the Luxembourg defeat from Irish psyche?
Yeah, we're just after that reading in the years moment as a nation. We just want those memorable moments, whether it's positive or negative. And I guess progressive football and incremental improvements and keeping the possession better isn't so sexy, but it's that's the way I'd like my national team to play. But then again, maybe you are sacrificing tournament appearances because you are basically flipping the system and starting from scratch and changing the way we play football in the senior national team from decades old, which was a results first business, and it gave us some amazing memories and unbelievable parties. And I guess when you're on your deathbed, that's what life's about, to get very deep now. But if you're living day to day and you like your good football, I'd rather have the latter now at this stage. I think we have enough reading in the year's memories. I like to see.
I also don't think it's one or the other, though. Like, I mean,
I think it is.
Sure, we're not going to this World Cup, but we didn't go to the last World Cup. I mean, like the old football didn't get us to any World Cups except for 2002, 1992. And I mean, like Ireland are not a World Cup team. We've been to the Euros. You know, Mick McCarthy didn't get us to the Euros with his style of football. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think we are building something new that will eventually, I believe, lead to the exact same amount of parties, but just in a better way, more often. So depends what way you look at it.
It's next to near impossible now, though, not to qualify for the Euros. Like, realistically, we've no real excuse not to.
Listen,
it's not
if
like
Ireland don't qualify for the Euros, then there is something wrong.
Yeah, well, it's not so special then. Like, so then we're going to have to go further. And then my worry is that we will just play it wrong. And
we have to win it.
Yeah, we could win it. And then I'll be the one saying in the corner of the bars, like, but at what cost, lads? At what cost?
Listen, that is that's a longer discussion than I expected to have on Ireland tonight, but I guess we'll park it for another few months. In November is the next international break, as far as I know, a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, we'll park it until that. We'll come back to Ireland when we have those the Portugal game and the Luxembourg game as well. After the break, we're going to be diving into the Premier League, which is back Newcastle United's first game under new ownership. So that's coming up after the break. Stay tuned.
Team 33. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Now you're welcome back to Team 33 and a call here with you. So Arthur O'D and Colin Buig are on the line. The Premier League is back this weekend after a short period out with the international break. Newcastle United taking on Tottenham. Why are we talking about Newcastle United against Tottenham? Well, it is the first game Newcastle play under their new ownership. The Saudi-led takeover is complete. The Saudi Public Investment Fund acquired 80% of the club. It's said to be worth about 305 million worth of shares in the club. The issues around piracy have been solved, and the issues around human rights never really mattered. So Newcastle United are officially no longer owned by Mike Ashley. This is going to be an interesting ride. There is a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unfurl here. We're obviously going to talk about the moral issue here with the Newcastle takeover, but I do also want to talk about the football side of things as well. So we'll start with the inevitable chat around this, and that is what in the name of God is going on here with the Saudi-led takeover. Why did the Premier League let it happen, and the issues that might arise with it? So if you want to get a good grasp of what happened with the piracy issues, there's actually a Team 33 episode on that. I spoke to a journalist about it. He had written in depth about the BOQ channel, which was the piracy channel. It was set up, and it was basically ripping off beIN Sports, and that led to issues around Premier League rights, and would this pirate channel still be ripping off the Premier League? That was the main stumbling block when it came to this deal to get it over the line. That was dealt with. Newcastle are now under new ownership. Arthur, I'll let you start with this. Newcastle fans are singing "We've got our club back," despite 80% share being sold in it to a state that is not well known for its human rights. It's not well known for anything quite good. So what are we thinking here in terms of the Newcastle reaction, Newcastle fans, and in general this deal coming through?
Yeah, there's something a little bit disconcerting, I suppose, in the glorifying of it. From that perspective, yeah, and some of the songs being sung as well around St. James's Park when the kind of deal was being done. But in the big picture, it's very, very difficult to kind of, I suppose, I don't know what we'd expect, or not expect in terms of, say, like actions now afterwards, and Newcastle fans and what you would expect from them. I'm not really sure what. I've been kind of going over and backwards and talking about it an awful lot, but like, if you accept that, I suppose football in England particularly would be equivalent, I would imagine, for an awful lot of people would be the equivalent sort of bonds and links that we would have here with counties with GAA. You know, a lot of people in the GA might not like to admit that, and different things with amateurism and professionalism and stuff, but it is like the bonds are that they're generational bonds. You can't really expect someone to walk away from that, no more than we'd expect someone to walk away from just not following their county. If I suppose it's harder for such an equivalent thing to happen, obviously, but I don't know. It's very, very hard. It's obvious in a certain sense that it's morally objectionable, and you can go, that's fine. Now we can do that. There's not really in terms of action. I mean, what can we do? What can they do? I'm not sure what anyone can actually do. Maybe that's a bit helpless. I don't know.
I do think it is a helpless situation, though, because I mean, listen, if you look at it from a Newcastle United supporters fan perspective, I don't know what you do here, because you look at Man City, who are owned by Abu Dhabi, a similar enough state to Saudi Arabia. You look at Chelsea, owned by a Russian oligarch who has former KGB links. You look at PSG, what's happening there with Qatar. You look at the World Cup that is in Qatar next year, and talk that it could be moving to Israel after that. So football has sold itself down a river here that had irreversible consequences, and football fans are just sort of passengers among that ride. Colm, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, because I mean, there are no real good billionaires, in my opinion. So, you know, the owners of the Premier League, I'm not going to say they're all bad people, but I'm not going to say they're all good people either. This is just one further step in what the Premier League have been doing for years now. I'm just not really sure how morally objective it really is if you look at the past of the Premier League.
Yeah, philanthropic billionaires, probably rare, all right. But like with the case of Newcastle fans, you know, if you wake up very hungover and you've had a hangover for a long, long time, and then someone gives you, like, you know, a nice processed hot chicken roll, i.e. the Saudi ownership, and that would make you feel better. Don't ask me where I got this from. They're going to take it, right? So these Newcastle fans are still living off Kevin Keegan's entertainers in 1996, and they were 12 points ahead in January. And that Peter Schmeichel match, like, how did he do that to us? Because they don't really have much else to talk about in terms of their absolute glory years. They had a great team in the mid-90s, and they didn't win the league when they should have. So they've been hungover for a quarter of a century. The hangover cure is now delivered to them, and they're, you know, the deliverer is saying, don't ask me where I got this from. It'll just make you feel better. They're going to take it. And, you know, like questionable football ownership, it's like the internet. There's no going back. There's no going back now. And it, you know, people say the last ever pure game of football was Chelsea versus Liverpool in May 2003. And the story goes that whoever won that was the club that Roman Abramovich was going to try and take over. And he was also looking at Tottenham. So Chelsea and Manchester City and Newcastle United, as football clubs, have nothing to do with these ownerships. They're just selecting these clubs. Like, Man City is not the club that they were pre-2008. It's a new Manchester City. But like Arthur was saying, like, this is their county. This is their Sligo, Donegal, or Cork, whatever you want to call it. They can't walk away, and they just have to accept it, or else they set up FC United of Manchester. And I don't think Newcastle fans are going to do that, because it wasn't like it was a raging success before that. So we might as well join them if we can't beat them. And that is the price they pay. And then the other side of it is, like, there's never been more money in football, and the football itself, we touched on this last week, has never been better. That's more my opinion, not everybody's opinion, but technically it's unbelievable. Your average right back now is so much better than they were 15 years ago, and that goes across the board. But then the emotion kind of goes too, because you're kind of like, well, what's this ultimately all about? Like, Atletico Madrid won La Liga last season, and everyone just kind of moves on with this. It's like, okay, next game. And it's like, who are we even stopping to enjoy this? Mikel Arteta won the FA Cup with Arsenal a year ago. Nobody cares. Like, everybody was talking about them losing 2-0 to Brentford, and that's the end of Arteta. In that, isn't football supposed to be about winning trophies? But, like, trophies don't really matter now. It's just about earning lots of revenue. And football is content, but the content is very entertaining. And so what's going to happen? Like, what's the alternative now? There's no going back. Because if you go back, the football gets worse. Then he can't sell it as well. We shook our hands with the devil, and we're all complicit in it.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about it is that Newcastle, outside of, like, Chelsea, are the obvious example with Roman Abramovich, but like Newcastle are the first, I think, Premier League club that are well established as a massive club with a huge, like, massive fan base that are like religious about the club, who have been now taken over by what essentially they're going to be the richest club in the world. Essentially, that's what Newcastle are now. Man City are a little bit different, Chelsea a little bit different as well, because the fans weren't as fervent about them. I guess they're really, they have fan base there. They had relative success in the past, but Newcastle are like a historical club with a massive story behind them. So it's going to be sad to watch that slowly erased. And I do think that's going to happen. I think, will the Newcastle story get better? Yes, it will. Will they get better players? Yes, they will. But they'll also erase the brand that Newcastle had before that. It will become very whitewashed. It will become very corporate, very fast. You'll see corporate seats popping up right, left, and centre in St. James's Park. And it's going to be a different club. That's essentially what Newcastle fans need to probably wrap their head around. It's going to be a different club. It's not going to be Kevin Keegan's Newcastle United. It's not going to be Sir Bobby Robson's Newcastle United. It's not going to be the club that Alan Shearer played for. It's going to be a different Newcastle United. It's going to be a whitewashed, watered down version of what they once were. And that's what all Premier League clubs have become, essentially. There's a great video of a young Liverpool fan a couple of years ago, and I can't remember if this was before the success or after the success, but he's talking about the experience of going to Anfield, and he's just like, it's not the same. It's just like, yes, there's more people there. Yes, the stands are better. Yes, the football's better, but it's like they're demolishing houses around Anfield to build this stadium. That's what FSG are doing. They're buying up land around the stadium and pushing people out of their houses, their homes for generations, to add more seats to their stadium. And that's just what happens with modern football and modern society, I guess. I find it all really sad, not just because of the moral issues, but because of what's going to happen to what is essentially a really great club in Newcastle United.
Yeah, but I think, like, as you're saying, like, I suppose from their point of view, as long as it's not Mike Ashley's Newcastle United, that's fine. It can't get much worse than it probably has from their point of view, from a daily experience of being a Newcastle fan. And I think, look, I mean, yeah, it's kind of, it's just so far gone now at this stage. I don't think it particularly feels like a turning point or anything. It's like, yeah, that's about right. And it's like, which will be next? Because I don't think, I think you're doing a bit of a disservice to Man City, like, as well. Like, I don't know when the last time, but I think City had won the league in '68, I think, didn't they? I think they won the league the same year United won the European Cup. It's like, again, a huge club, and I have family in Manchester as well who would be Man City fans. Like that's, as you're kind of saying now, it's kind of, or as Colm said, like, it's chalk and cheese the way the difference now between from then to now. Like, it's, but that's, I think that's just the Premier League generally, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's authenticity there, but, like, and stories like Brentford, but even that there's an awful lot of that's not like you don't want to criticize it as inorganic, but it's more so that it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of, everything's very carefully executed. Like, it's supposed to be part of that. You need to be really either well funded or well thought out. Like, there's not really romance involved as such.
No, Brentford's Moneyball, so that's Moneyball tactic. Yeah, it's data driven. Yeah, it's totally data driven. Nothing to do with Brentford. Yeah. It just happens to be Brentford.
I mean, it's more interesting than it is romantic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's a really, really neat encapsulation of football in the last decade. It's really interesting. It's not romantic, and that's the price you pay, like, for better quality, which is inorganic. Because otherwise it's going to take. We wouldn't have the quality that we see now in our lifetime. Otherwise, because it would take so long to build.
I do want to talk about the football side of things, but we'll park the Newcastle chat, I guess, for another day. I was going to ask you, parking all the obvious issues with this, if Steve Bruce wasn't sacked by Newcastle, what would he buy with the money that Saudi Arabia would give him? It's always been like an interesting sort of dream of mine, or even like of Sam Allardyce's, that if he got the money that Pep Guardiola had, that he would be doing the exact same thing and he wouldn't be playing Sam Allardyce football. So for 1 year, I would have loved to see Steve Bruce with a budget of 300 million to see what he would bring in. Like, would it all be similar enough players, or would he be changing to tiki-taka football? But we'll park that. We'll come back to that some other day. We'll make up some fake idea and what club will be next. The final thing we want to touch on is Wayne Rooney, and there is a documentary coming out on Amazon Prime in early 2022. It's documenting his career, and it also says that it's documenting the difficult periods in his life as well. Interesting character, Wayne Rooney. 35 years old, younger than Ronaldo, younger than Fernandinho, Thiago Silva, Ashley Young, James Milner. They're all still playing top-level Premier League football. Wayne Rooney is managing Derby County, who, we all know their money struggles at the minute. But to say that Wayne Rooney is washed up, I don't think would be an unfair way of describing his post-career in terms of the way that it went. Colm, you're a massive Wayne Rooney fan. I know you are. Is it unfair to say Wayne Rooney underachieved?
No, it's not. And how mad is it to say that we're talking about a player who underachieved and he's the top goal scorer in Manchester United and England's history, and he's won absolutely everything in the game at a club level. And yeah, he kind of, you could almost say the final third of his career was very underwhelming. I wrote a piece in this couple of years ago to compare Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney, and in the first 3 years of Ronaldo's United career, 2003 to 6, I remember as United fans and discussing it at the time. I think it was the journalistic point of view too, is that, geez, this Ronaldo guy kind of flatters to deceive more often than not. Like he's kind of muscled off the ball. His end product's not great. Ruud van Nistelrooy was famously infuriated by his lack of decisiveness compared to David Beckham. And then meanwhile, you had Wayne Rooney, who was just bulldozing his way through defenses, had the body of a man despite being a teenager, but also the technique to boot, which is quite unique at the time, to be built so strongly and to be so fast and to be so skillful. It was like a player that you would create in FIFA or Pro Ev, and he was a real life player. And then it seemed to me in the summer of 2006, they both went their separate ways in the road after the wink between England and Portugal. And they came back, and I think one of Alex Ferguson's most masterful strokes of diplomacy was getting those two guys immediately together and be like, forget about what happened internationally. Let's make it happen at club level. First game of that season, they beat Fulham 5-0 at Old Trafford. They both scored 2 each, and they win their first league of 3 in a row at the end of that season. And they were a formidable partnership. But what happened was Ronaldo got better, got stronger. The body that we were talking about, Rooney, this is what Ronaldo built, but it was healthier. And Rooney never relied on that because he had so much natural ability. I think Rooney had more natural ability than Ronaldo. And then slowly, Ferguson started using Rooney as the team player out of the likes of Ronaldo, Tevez, and Berbatov. And the thing about Rooney is he's so selfless in that period from about 07 to 09, the really, really successful period. Rooney often played out wide, like he was taken off in the Champions League final against Chelsea, Moscow, so wasn't able to take a penalty because he had run his legs off, was taken off. And then when Ronaldo leaves and they don't replace him, Rooney's furious. And what does he do? He goes out and scores 34 goals in the 09-10 season and gets injured against Bayern with his ankle and never really recovers again to be the player he was. Then he hands in a transfer request later that year. So he's a very strange relationship among the fans because they see him as a bit of a traitor and selfish, but he's actually one of the most selfless players that ever played for United. And then the other side didn't reach his potential, all-time top scorer by 2. And he wasn't even renowned for his goal scoring, really. It was his whole game as a player. So he didn't fulfill his potential. He dropped back into midfield. I thought he was very average in midfield. Was really happy to see him leave United in 2017. I was like, got to get him out of the club. He's slowing this team down. But it was really sad after that. Left go a year later by Everton. I remember he did an interview with ESPN when he signed for DC United and was quite visibly shell-shocked about how he was treated by Everton. He was top scorer in that one season, and they shipped him off. And nobody wanted him at the end. And maybe he didn't look after himself. I think he was a victim of, what he naturally looked like too, in that it's easy to say, oh, he's washed up because he wasn't the most clean-cut looking guy. But I think what he's doing now is brilliant with Derby because he could have walked away. He doesn't need the money, and he's staying with them. And he's doing okay at the time of speaking. Of course, in football, he could be sacked later today. But if I was him, I was friends and family, I'd be very proud of what he achieved, but he's always going to have that tag of being an underachiever. And kind of like the question is for ye and the actors, like, what is Wayne Rooney? What is the legacy?
For me,
I think. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, for me, Wayne Rooney is the guy who smashes the ball into the net more than anybody that I remember. That's like he scores screamers. He's a guy who scores. He's both a great scorer of goals and a scorer of great goals. That's how I remember Wayne Rooney.
I think I fully agree with everything Colin said there, and I think it's kind of underestimated, especially at the time when he did it. That if you think so, from 2004 up until at least say Ferguson leaves in 2013, so like 9 years, non-stop regular starter at Man United. I really think that's underestimated how few actually achieve what he did under the pressure he was under at the club he was at. It's astonishing. He's an astonishing footballer. Like it's kind of, you can go, okay, he's not Cristiano Ronaldo, he's not Messi, fine. Think about the number of players he's far more than. It's just I think he's incredible, and maybe that's my age as well. Like I was 13 when he signed for United. Like I remember that game against Fenerbahce. Like he has free kicks as well. Like it's like it was ridiculous. It was just an insane. But I think, and once they got up and running properly, that 06-07 season on into then, that he was instrumental to that team, and that team I think that comes along is the best one that Ferguson ever had. And in living memory, my living memory, the best one that Man United ever had. I think he was an astonishing player, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to be blunt about this, just to finish off the show with a question. Would you take young Wayne Rooney? Would you take? I'm going to call him Fat Wayne Rooney. He wasn't really fat, but bulky Wayne Rooney is probably a nicer way to say it. Or would you take bald Wayne Rooney? Because those are the three parts of his career that I remember. Bald Wayne Rooney was the year that he scored all the headers, year before he got the hair plugs.
Oh yeah, no, the 2009-10 version of Wayne Rooney, he was the best striker in the world for me at that stage for that one season. But the ankle injury he got against Bayern, they rushed him back because they didn't have Cristiano Ronaldo anymore, and that kind of slowly finished him. But I would take that one. The one who came on the scene first, like he was kind of a highlights player too. Like everyone remembers the goal against Arsenal for Everton. He's got a great goal at Highbury against Arsenal too for Everton. And said there was a Southampton one for Everton. There was loads of goals, but he was actually quite careless in possession at the start because he tried to do everything himself. He's a much better player, 09-10, much better. I would take Bald Rooney all day. I take Bald Rooney over most players in my lifetime as a United fan.
Arthur?
I'm not sure if it's Bald Rooney or not, and Colin would probably know this. I want that one that. Remember that time around that time from about 2009, 8-9 onward, where they just seemed to routinely beat Arsenal. It was no bother to them at all. And I want that one where it was, I think it was going right to left as you watch it on the TV. And he made that, they were almost certain they were in black as well. And he makes that run, the speed of him over the course of the ground, where he's just pairing off people. I think it might have been Nani who played the ball in, and he kind of finishes on the run.
Yeah, Arsenal at the Emirates. That was, I think that was the year after. I think that was 11-12, or maybe 10-11. Yeah, Nani had a great game that game. Nani got a great goal, because Nani was brilliant for about a year or two. And yeah, Rooney's pace, and that was like well into his career. That's over a decade into his career, and he absolutely bombed it down the field.
It was incredible.
Yeah, that was a great. Arsenal had the red nets that season. Yeah, they were. Arsenal.
Big Barclays. Pick Barclays.
I miss the old style nets. This is a totally different conversation, but all the nets are the same now. That's another thing that we got to put.
That's where it's gone.
That's where it's gone. It's all the nets.
Coming up on Team 33, we're going to be talking about the different types of football nets.
I'm telling you, people would love that. I'm telling you, they would go for it.
You know what? They might do, but that is for another day. Don't forget Wayne Rooney's best ever achievement, Wayne Rooney's street soccer skills.
I remember
that is by far and away the greatest naughties period of television you're ever going to witness. But that is the show for this evening. Arthur, Colm, thank you for that.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks, Benny.
All right, we will take a quick break.
Team 30.